We're live right now. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody. We have a special guest. If you guys know Mr. Hyatt, Mr. Peter Hyatt, and if you don't, I'll do the introductions. So, he's a statement analyst and an instructor. He teaches statement analysis to law enforcement in corporate America, and he's nationally recognized as an expert in deception and detection. And he's done cases like, he's really famous for the McCann case, right, Mr. Hyatt?
That was one that surprised me a bit, yes.
So he's known for that case, and recently he's even done the Summer Wells case, and he even did NK, a Nicole Kessinger. I caught that one, Mr. Hyatt, from the from Chris Watts. We're all familiar with that. He's done the Ramsey case, and he's here with us, giving us his precious time. This week's really hectic for him, and we really appreciate him being here because he's really busy this week. So take it away. You want to? Oh, so Darlie. So for those of you guys who don't know who Darlie Routier is, I know a lot of people don't. Tiff, do you want to give a thing about what happened with Darlie, or who she is, or why we're talking about her to people that don't know?
I mean, you can, or do you want me to?
You do it.
You want me to do it? Okay, well, so Darlie Routier, she's currently on death row right now and has been since, well, it happened in 1996. She got convicted of stabbing her two boys. There's a lot of controversy. There's a lot of people that think that she didn't do it. She still says that she's innocent. She still says she had nothing to do with it. She's innocent. She's out of her appeals right now. So you know what that means. Like when you're on death row and you're out of your appeals, it's only a matter of time that she's going to get her date for execution. So I know the Innocence Project took on her case. So I don't know how long they take or what's going to happen with that. But yeah, she got convicted in 1996. I don't know. I'm not very good at this right now, Bella. Is there anything else I need to?
So she was convicted of killing one of her boys because it got her the death penalty. And that was Damon, who was the youngest. And she's convicted of killing him, but she is in prison for killing basically both of her boys, yeah. Devin and Damon. And it was June 6th, 1996. Yeah. She's on her last appeal.
And, she was only 26 years old. She was, young. It's a very interesting case, but I mean, you have very passionate people on both sides that think she's innocent and that think she's guilty. So,
Mr. Hyatt, start off by telling us why 911 calls are so important in statement analysis.
911 calls are realistically the first interview that takes place. They're calling law enforcement, and the information is not technically, but it's a type of excited utterance where someone is in distress, and that's our presupposition. And the information that comes from them is often very reliable. And this particular one that we're going to hear is a little bit embarrassing for me, a little bit comical, how it all started for me. I grew up as a news hound. My older brother listened to, in New York, News Radio 88, AM radio, 24 hours a day news. And I got hooked on it as a kid. So I basically been up on cases since I was a boy, and I've always been a news hound. What happened was someone sent me this transcript. This is about 10 years ago. And I hadn't heard of the case. I didn't look up the case, but I do so many 911 calls. I just started to analyze this 911 call, and it surprised me. So when I came to my conclusion, I sent it to the local police department that had been charged with investigating Darlie. I thought I was doing them a favor of some form. And the hosting captain was very gracious, and I ended up with a professional relationship with him later. But he was gracious and thanked me and said maybe it can be used for the appeal if necessary. And I said, what? I didn't know that it had been adjudicated. I had not heard of it. So I didn't know about some of the things that went on in terms of what people point to, behavioral analysis, the silly string at the memorial, her mental health issues. I didn't know anything about that. To me, it was a cold 911 call that took me on a strange path. So it should be interesting to look at. Those who believe that she's innocent, I'm not here to convince them otherwise. I'm here to show them how we enter into this type of analysis and why being open-minded is so critical.
Love that.
Yes, I love that too. Yeah. All right. Well, should I play it, guys, or?
Yeah, play. Well, we're going to play the 911 call to bring everyone up to speed about what we're talking about. And then we will put up the transcript so you guys can see the words, because this is a statement analysis.
I'm actually going to put it up as it's going. I'm going to scroll through them as we're playing the 911 call too. So yeah.
We'll do both. Okay.
But then I'll put it up after. All right. So hold on one second. Let me get
everyone in chat ready to hear Darlie do her 911. It is kind of gut-wrenching because of the way. But in statement analysis, Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, no one listens to the inflection or the tone. It's just the words that are spoken, right?
Correct. We do this step by step. And when we're analyzing a case, we'll eventually get to the different parts and evidence and that sort of thing. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to listen to her call. We're going to go with the presuppositional thinking that she is an innocent victim. Okay, that's not a moral or an ethical position. It's a position that's used to detect deception. So what happens is we must go into this, and so in that sense, we're not completely open-minded. We have some influence, but we begin with the stance that she's an innocent victim. She's going to ask for help to save her son's lives. She would have to talk us out of that to conclude deception.
Okay. I like it.
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
It's a confrontational process. So this should go very smoothly. We shouldn't be confronted by anything. If anything causes us to pause and gains our attention and confronts us that we're not expecting, then we're going to examine it.
Okay. All right. Let me share my screen here and then. All right.
911, what is your emergency? Ma'am? They just stabbed me and my children. What? They just stabbed me and my children. Who did? Hang on. Hang on, ma'am. Ma'am? No medical emergency, 5801 Eagle Drive. Ma'am, I'm trying to get an ambulance to you. Hang on a minute. Oh, God, my babies are dying. What's going on, ma'am? Oh, my God. I didn't even know what you were. 901, I know medical emergency, 5801 Eagle Drive, by 238, Cross Street, Linda Vista, and Willowbrook. Attention, 901, medical emergency. Possible stabbing, 5801 Eagle Drive, box 238, Cross Street, Linda Vista, and Willowbrook, time out 232. Oh my God! New units going forward, 6801 Eagle Drive, 5801 Eagle Drive, the sheriff is on the phone. Since her child has been stabbed. Ma'am, I need you to calm down and talk to me. Twice, Clint. 5801 Eagle. 233 code. Ma'am, listen to me. I need you to. Oh my God! Do you take the radio, Clint? Yes. Ma'am, I need you to talk to me. Ma'am, I can't understand you. You're going to have to slow down, calm down, and talk to me. What is going on? Somebody came in while I was sleeping. Me and my little boys were sleeping downstairs. Stop my baby. Stop me. I woke up. I was fighting. We ran out to the garage. Threw the knife down. My babies are dying. They're dead. Oh my talking. Oh my God. Just that one. Hold on, honey. Hold on. Hold on. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Ma'am, who's there with you? Ma'am. What? Is there anybody in the house besides you and your children? My husband, he just went downstairs. He's helping me, but he's dead. Oh my God, he's dead. Okay, how many little boys? Is it 2 boys? 3 of them. Okay, listen to me. Calm down. Go ahead. 5801 Eagle Drive. 5801 Eagle Drive. It's going to be in 7. When are they going to be here? Ma'am, they're on their way. Oh my God. Put that back. Ma'am, how old are your boys? What? How old are your boys? No. 7. Okay. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, he's dead. Calm down, can you? 7. Oh my God. Is your name Darlie? Yes. Is your husband's name Dan? Yes, please. Hurry. God, they're taking forever. There's nobody in your head. There was. You don't know who did this? They killed baby. They were on the ground. I was sleeping. My baby. Oh my God. Oh my God. They left the knife right. There's a knife. Don't touch anything. Who's out there? Anybody out there? I don't know. Okay, ma'am, listen. There's a police officer at your front door. Is your front door unlocked? Yes, ma'am. It's with the ambulance. Okay. They're breathing. If they don't get in here, they're going to be dead. My God, they're dead. Hurry, please. Okay, there's 82 out on Eagle. Huh? That Eagle. Eagle, my God, hurry. 82, you out. Oh my God. Oh my God. Why would they do this? What did he say? Why would they do this? Okay, listen, ma'am. You need to let the officers in the front door, okay? What? Ma'am? What? You need to let the police officers in the front door. His knife was laying over there, and I already picked it up. Okay, it's all right. It's okay. I got the purse, baby. Ma'am, hang on a second. They walked in here and did it, and there's nothing cut. Okay, ma'am. There's nothing cut. Oh, God. Ma'am, is the police officer there? Yes. Okay, go talk to him, okay? Yes, that's okay. Go talk to him, baby. Okay?
Very emotional.
Yeah. I'll
We
put it
take
back
that
up.
out.
But yeah, wow. All right. I'm so interested to see what you have to say about this. Do you want me to put the transcripts on the screen right now, Peter?
Are the transcripts just clean without any notes?
There's no notes, no.
Yeah, that'd be great
Oh wait, I did the wrong thing. Okay.
if you can.
Yeah, I wouldn't say these are no notes. They're just okay. So let's go. I'll start at the beginning right here. Okay, here's the beginning of it. Can you see?
I'm trying to see if I make it any larger.
Let's see here. Let me see if I can make it any bigger. That's about as big. Well, see, it cuts it off then.
That's okay, little by little. As long as the audience can see it clearly, and I have another copy here too.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that's the first time that I heard her voice. I don't think I've ever listened to it, and this was about 10 years ago when I did it, the analysis of it. I wasn't. I didn't know what I was looking for in the analysis. And generally, a 911 call, we have our expectations, and a 5-minute call may take about 6 hours to analyze. Very careful of the words that someone chooses. But we begin with the presumption of innocence, not judicial innocence, but de facto, that she didn't do this. And that's always where we start. Even in employment analysis, we'll say, we're hiring this person unless they give us a reason not to. We begin with that so that we're confronted with something that we weren't expecting. So a mother's reporting that an intruder stabbed her children and herself. So we have an expectation of an assault where a maternal instinct is going to be in play, and that she's going to be asking for help either for the children directly, or if she's giving CPR or she's trying to address a wound, guidance for herself. In every 911 call, we are given generally one of two impressions. Impression one is that the person is working to help facilitate the flow of information to law enforcement. Or number two, the person is not. The person is not. And that's when we begin to look at various little features within a 911 call. For instance, some 911 calls may start with an emergency, but may start with the word hello. And that's something we don't expect. We expect the person to go right to it. And we also ask, if you were a mother of two little children who had just been stabbed, what's the first thing that you would say? And we ask people just to consider that, just to think about it. Someone will always say, inevitably, and this is a quote from Cindy Anthony, where she talked about her daughter, no one really knows how they'll react when their child goes missing. As a matter of fact, we do. We do know how people react. We know how innocent people sound, and we know how guilty people sound because we have so many of them. So we go through a lot of 911 calls. Generally speaking, in training, analysts become very good at it. They can often solve a case right from the very beginning. And what I mean by solve a case is to know the conclusion of the matter. It still has to be proven in terms of court. It's not admissible in court to say, Your Honor, hey, you heard the pronoun. That's it. It's not going to fly. The on-the-boots investigators have to put together the evidence, but it's a wonderful and marvelous shortcut. So instead of doing a dragnet of possible suspects everywhere, we start right here. And this is how it works also with missing children. So first thing I'd like to look at is what is the first thing that came out of Darlie's mouth? And the question is, what is your emergency? And that's a really good question to ask because it's expected. It doesn't influence her language. It allows her to speak her own words, and it also allows her to tell us when this thing started. So the expectation of a mother, we have maternal instincts, is going to be, my children are stabbed. My children are bleeding. Someone just did this to me, that sort of thing. A man broke in and stabbed my children. Something along those lines where that will be the priority, because the order of which someone speaks indicates their priority. Do you remember a case in Florida years ago of a little girl that was being babysat by her father's girlfriend, and she went missing, and the girlfriend called 911, and she said, hello, I was just sleeping, and someone opened the door, and the child is missing. So we looked at the priority of that, where she wants police to know that she was asleep, so she couldn't have any part of it.
She's setting up her alibi before giving the info.
Exactly. So let's take a look at what Darlie said. Somebody came in here, they broke in, they just stabbed me and my children. So it's rather unexpected that the children would be the fourth priority listed when she speaks in this way. The emergency is my kids are bleeding right here. My babies, and I certainly don't mind that change of language where they become babies, because a mother will see them that way when they're in danger. That's expected. That's natural and normal. So we look for the parental instincts to kick in, even under the emergency setting, and we look for her to go right to the truth of the matter of what's most on her mind. So the first thing I will note is that somebody came in here. Now, somebody is gender neutral. When we have experiential memory, it gets really rough. We can remember an assailant, the way the assailant's breath smelled, or if the hands were dirty. It's such a sensory thing that happens. Some man put his hands on my kids. That's going to light up both mother and father. We call those things events of hormonal consequence. In other words, they're accompanied by an increase, a rise of hormones. And it leaves an imprint. This is, of course, where we are able to see the damage of PTSD upon someone. It's terrible. But it's an event that will be remembered. Years ago, I had a case where a man came home from work and he found his girlfriend and her 6-year-old son dead in bed. And what he said was, 2 people just killed themselves in my house. He's actually assigning murder to both his girlfriend and the 6-year-old boy. And that was the first thing I noted, that this was trouble. And so I was able to conclude that the caller, the 911 caller, who had passed his polygraph, was deceptive and was actually the killer. And then years later, he was convicted of it after being initially cleared. Wow. So people will tell us what they mean. They'll choose the words, and especially under an emergency situation, without pause or thought. If they have some kind of pre-thought, then we're wondering about being scripted, even with screaming and yelling. It's just a natural explosion of emotional words that are laser focused on getting those kids help. And that's my expectation. But what I have is somebody came here, somebody is gender neutral. So first thing I notice, it's not a man, because seeing a man stab the kids, but especially then when the man stabs her, that's very personal. That's what I mean by personal, is that it's intrusive into one's own safety zone. So an assault is always personal, unless it was something where rocks were thrown from far away or something like that. This was, someone did this to me, and that someone, she should know the gender. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. I don't like that this came in, but I would like to excuse anything she says if I can. If I can discount anything, say, oh, well, maybe she thought this, or maybe she thought that, or she was so upset she wasn't thinking, that sort of thing. If I can do that wherever I can, and she still talks me into the position of that she's deceiving, that's where we're going to land. So what I found myself doing in the first line of this was what we call anonymous author identification. Anonymous author identification work is advanced, and it's complicated. It's fascinating. It's crazy fascinating, and it's very rewarding. So we work as a team. I work with some terrific professionals on identifying an anonymous author who sends a threatening letter, for example.
Like the Ramsey case?
Yeah, that's a good example. And we're looking for, or like that, some of the hate crimes letters. I did one from Lindenhurst, New York, a couple of years ago, that made the news that the KKK was rising in Long Island, and that they were telling a black family to leave the neighborhood. And it started off, "Dear African American family." I said, generally the KKK is not that polite.
Right.
And that proved that it was, and my conclusion was someone from inside the house wrote the letter. It's a fake. And that proved to be true. And we get a lot of those. So we look for the background of the author, the experiences the author may have been through, the dominant personality traits of an author, and what the author wants, a priority. Generally speaking, if someone receives a threatening letter and we can identify successfully 70% of the characteristics, they're going to know who did it. They're going to know. So what I was looking for here was a critical point that we have when we're trying to identify someone. It's called linguistic disposition. What this is let's say that you started off by saying, "Hi, Peter, welcome to my show. By the way, I really love pizza." So that's nice. I'm glad you like pizza. Later on, you started talking about different cheeses and the pepperoni and different cities that you go to just to have the pizza. By claiming that you like pizza, we take that as an open statement on its own merit. But later on, you spoke about pizza. And your disposition through the words was very positive towards pizza. You're telling the truth. You really like your pizza. So, how would you feel as a mother of a man who stabbed your children and yourself?
I would hate him.
Exactly. The rage and anger would almost blind you. The mother bear would come out with the claws and so we look at the linguistic disposition, and I'm going to ask the question of the audience to consider this. What is the caller, Darlie, what is her linguistic disposition towards the killer? And this is the strange thing that happens with the anonymous author work, is that in masking an identity, I don't want to be caught, so I'm going to mask my identity. Even while trying to mask the identity in an anonymous letter, the author comes out. The author reveals himself, herself, or even more than one person. We did one, I think it was in New Jersey, where it started off with, "Hey, yo, what's up, bro?" And we said, "Okay, there's a white guy." Another one we see is, "We are one of many, and we are willing to go out and go public, all of us together." And we have an overemphasis on plural, means the person's alone. "We are a small foreign faction." They foreigners don't call themselves foreigners when they're here, but that was indication that it wasn't a faction and they weren't foreigners. What we don't find is double masking. For whatever reason, and I think it's self-preservation, when someone's writing an anonymous letter, they don't want to reveal themselves. They don't want the scent to come close. So a male may pretend to be a female. A white person may pretend to be black. Someone who's working alone pretends to be in a group. In the Dear African American Family letter, they're very polite. The author who worked alone made it sound as if it was a community. And Lindenhurst is a mixed community, so it was kind of silly in that sense too. And there was some mental health issues that went on there. So I'm looking for Darlie's linguistic disposition towards the killer. So the first thing I notice is that someone came in here. Someone is gender neutral. But she's just getting started, so I'm going to let that pass.
Okay.
It should become a man, because it was a man with physical strength, with adrenaline. The intrusive nature of someone in your home who is doing violence is shocking, and you're going to remember his gender. They broke in. So now you ask, is it more than one? Because it's they is plural. Now this was a very personal attack, my assumption, meaning that she was literally stabbed herself And her children, her own children, were stabbed by this man. He's not a they. They is used when it's singular to conceal the gender again. So I looked at the first line and said, what is she doing? Does she know who the intruder is? When I had finished the analysis, I was pretty proud of it. I thought I did a great job on it. And there it was, sending it to the police department. It's like, oh yeah, this has been adjudicated years ago. No surprise here. But that's how I viewed it.
What was that, like 2011 you sent it in?
Somewhere around there. 2012. Almost 10 years ago. So it was embarrassing. And the recipient, the hosting captain, was a good sport about it. And later on, he had me do other work. And I think he does fine work these days, differently now. But I didn't know. I hadn't heard of this case. And I came to this conclusion. Listen, I don't know if you guys realize this, but she knows who the killer is. And she really likes the killer.
Oh, I want to hear about that part when you get to that. Because and she really likes it. Okay.
She has a positive linguistic disposition towards the killer.
So couldn't, Mr. Hyatt, so like the first sentence being, somebody came here, they broke in. Could it also be you're assigning they because you don't know if it's a man or a woman?
Sure. Except that she was stabbed herself by him.
So she should know.
She should know, of course. But this is just beginning. We're letting it unfold naturally to us. And so that's a good point. That at this point, we don't know that. So at this point, we better assume, because pronouns are instinctive.
Okay. They
predate even human speech. In English language, little babies will say my, even with their hands, before they can speak. So no matter what politicians may say or do, or levy fines for anything like that, as you perceive someone, you will instinctively use that pronoun. We don't stop to think, should I say I or we? Because was I alone or was I with someone else? We know instinctively.
Right.
Like that. They're always reliable for detecting deception. If there's one thing that anyone could learn to do well in terms of detecting deception, is to follow the pronouns. Follow the pronouns. So,
and I hear that a lot too, and also behavioral analysis is there's a lot of emphasis put on pronouns and change of pronouns throughout someone speaking. Okay.
Now the political movement that has people listing their preferred pronouns when they introduce themselves, it'll pass. If you live long enough, you see these things come and go in trends because you can't break that instinct.
Right.
So if I say to you, I'm identifying as a female, you're going to slip. No matter how hard you try, you're going to have to pause and really be careful, and you're really worried about offending me. Eventually, you're going to slip because you perceive me as a male. And it's not meant to be disrespectful to anyone, especially if someone is struggling with mental health issues. It is something that politicians should stay out of, like everything else in life, because it's going to trouble people. But I believe this will pass, and we'll be done with the silliness of it, and we'll go on to find something else silly to cling to. But this won't change. The pronouns won't change. So if we go strictly by what she said, somebody is gender neutral, and they is plural. Okay. And I'm going on presupposition. I believe her, and her words are going to guide me. Okay. Now, in behavioral analysis, it meshes very well with statement analysis. Is we look at the word "we" in rape statements. Once that female has been raped, the word "we" is ejected from her vocabulary, unless something else has taken place. It's a very rare exception, and the exception itself will be justified. If the word "we" enters after the sexual assault, she's lying. She's uniting herself with a rapist.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's
it is interesting.
It's
I should be taking notes on this stuff here.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
you can take a peek at some of the Bill Cosby accusers.
Oh.
Mr. Cosby, and later on Bill, and Bill and I, we went to this place and we did this and we did that. As soon as the sexual assault took place, we is gone, Bill is gone, and he's Cosby, or him. Because she has an instinctive reaction to get away from her assailant. It's that type of intrusive, violent crime. Even if she's been sedated, medicated, drugged, it's still an intrusion into her body, and there is no unity, because we shows unity. There's no unity between a rapist and a victim.
Right? You want to get as far away from that as possible.
And that will show in the language.
That's so interesting.
It will come up in the language. So when we look at that, I did a Hollywood case of some form where the victim was blamed for sleeping over after the rape. How could she sleep over after the rape? And the we was ejected. There was no more we between her and him. And we sleep in bed. She didn't sleep in the bed. She slept on the bed. She was probably paralyzed by fear. She didn't sleep with him, and she didn't sleep in his bed, but on it. She was telling the truth. Mm-hmm. So we're able to follow the pronouns and oftentimes show a victim who's been battered, who likely has a history, and some do, where they put themselves in harm's way for whatever reason, but it doesn't mean they're lying. They've got to be heard. We've got to listen to the language. It's a very personal, upfront and close intrusion, and the language will reflect that. When it doesn't reflect that, something's wrong. So
and how many, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, please. You go.
I just wanted to know how many statement analysts there are in the U.S., because anyone could look at a couple of your videos and think they know what they're doing, right? But there's only got to be a very small handful of you guys who are so well versed and have so many years under your belt.
Well, I think what makes us different as a team, and this is United States, Canada, Western Europe, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Russia, all different professions and all different walks, is besides formal training, which is vital, I think the most beneficial thing that I've ever done is team analysis. It's where you may bring something into the team analysis training that I don't have. First of all, you're a female, I'm a male. When we do anonymous author identification, we've got to report to the people whether the recipient, whether the writer is a male or female. And we speak differently. Neuroscience 101, about 8 or 9 weeks pre-born, the hormonal levels are different, and they're different forever. The child is changed in development, so that it's like settled by 8 or 9 weeks that we know of now. Thus far, science-wise, I think we'll probably make more headlines and go deeper with that as time goes on. But we think and we perceive differently. So when we work on an anonymous author identification, there's always female and male analysts working together. Always. It's that vital that we're able to do such a thing and identify. Because if politics gets involved, for example, someone sent a letter saying we're going to bomb your house. And so you turn to someone like me and said, can you and your team tell us who did this? So we go off, we analyze it, and it's quite a wrestling match. It's fascinating work, very difficult work. And we came back, we say, we got some good news and bad news. Good news is that we can identify enough of the writer that you'll likely know who the writer is, and we can save your family. The bad news is we're not going to tell you because that would be sexist.
Really?
We don't want to be accused of being sexist by saying it's a male voice or a female voice, in the language, in the wording. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And that's sometimes what people are up against, and especially younger people with the cultural shifting.
Yeah. Wow. And that's been something that's new that's been happening.
Yes.
What, like 10 years, 20 years, something?
I've only seen it connected emotionally within the last 5 to 10 years, maybe even just the last 5 years mostly.
Mm.
In law enforcement, any type, and this is a general statement, any type of belief in a higher morality of withholding information gets scrubbed off them when they go out into the street in danger. Even in rural America, when a traffic stop is still a danger because the expectation is lower.
Mm.
And I think sometimes police officers that are in training for deception detection, I think they don't treasure the time in traffic when they were interviewing people constantly under some kind of tense situations. It is invaluable for their knowledge, but they deal with threat all the time. They don't have time for the type of platitudes that say, well, let me, honor a politician here by being politically correct. They have to be realists.
Yeah.
They have to make a difference and save lives. They don't have the luxury of sitting back and saying, no, I'm sorry, we can't help you. I don't want to make a judgment on that. We have different talents. We have different things that we bring. Right. And that's why we won't, as a team, we won't do it. At least we do our best to have it with both sexes present. It's just too valuable to miss on, and too much is on the line for it.
I didn't even take that into consideration, that in a situation like that, you would have to be kind of more PC about it when, that's...
Yeah, they don't have the luxury of being PC. We did a training in Europe where, these kids, I call them kids because they were much younger than me, but they're brilliant Oxford postgrads. Mm. And a couple of them were not able to get past the exercise on identifying an anonymous author because they believed that the sex of the writer was made up of social construct than biology. And so it's like an emotional offense that just stops.
Yeah,
everything.
Like a block, yeah.
And we need to know, whoever came into Darlie, was it a male or female? We need to know. Mm-hmm. We want to identify the person. We want justice for those boys. We want justice for Darlie.
Right.
So the pronouns are instinctive. They will, you can't fault someone for mispronouncing someone when they're speaking freely. And I do believe this thing will pass us. So somebody came here.
Okay.
And stabbed my babies. No, she pauses even further for more information. They broke in. Now, if your children are bleeding, you want to get to that. This is an unnecessary step. So I have somebody, gender neutral, and I have they, plural, and the break-in is a new information going on, and they just stabbed me. Just being a comparative word, a dependent word, having to do oftentimes with time and timing. And the last thing that she's going to tell them is they stabbed my children, stabbed me and my children. So the priority has got my attention. The pronouns have my attention. And I'm asking at this point, hey, what's going on here? Does she know this person? Was it a multiple people came in? But she's taken a while to get to the kids. Why is that? And we leave these things. What we do is we throw questions at them without seeking answers from ourselves. What we're looking for is for Darlie to guide us to those answers. The answers are in the statement. We need to listen to her. We need to believe her and let her guide her. We need to let her words teach us. I trust the language. I trust the words to guide us. So that was the priority that I noted. I have the gender neutral. I have the plural. I have a slight slowing down of the pace with the additional information of breaking in. Generally speaking, people will go right to the issue. Like, kids are bleeding.
Mm.
No matter how hysterical they are, they are laser focused on saving those kids' lives. But she was first before them. That's unusual for a mother, but I'm not going to hang my hat on a single point here or there. I need it to accumulate over time.
Okay.
So then the operator said, what? Because it's a shocking thing. And obviously now when you're hearing the voice inflection, you're hearing someone that is hysterical, which is to be expected. They just stabbed me and my kids, my little boys.
Hmm.
So they is repeated. So in following her language and believing her, there's more than one assailant.
Hmm.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, everyone in chat, are we making sense? They'll let us know. It's always on a delay.
They just they pointed out how she chose to say me before her children. Like, they stabbed me and my children. So a lot of people are like, well, yeah, why did she say me first before her children? So
it is her priority. And that's what we accept that. In statement analysis, we're not reinterpreting her words to mean something that we think it means. Just because it wouldn't be, our priority would be our kids. And if you listen to 911 calls, and you look at the transcripts and analyze them of home invasions, you'll see the priority always comes out. And generally it's the victim.
Mm.
Not here though. She's ahead of the children. So good observation by the audience. Then she said, they just stabbed me and my kids, my little boys. So I'm going to follow our rules and say they is plural.
Okay.
If they're not plural, something is wrong. But I'm going to believe her. I'm going to trust her to guide me. So there's more than one assailant. It's they.
Okay.
So the operator is obviously a bit stunned here, and it's shocking information. Who did? And Darlie said, my little boy is dying. So the operator is asking, who did this? She doesn't answer. And if someone says, well, she's just so upset she wasn't listening. Okay, I'll take that too. So we'll dismiss that, or at least reduce it in our minds, because again, we're not trying to get something to fit our belief here. We need ourselves to fit into what the truth is, whatever it may be. But she didn't answer the question. And I really want her to do that, because it's important to identify not only what your boys need in terms of immediate first aid help, but we got to catch a killer. Excuse me, the killer is plural here. We've got to catch them. On some of the fake 911 calls where they talk about assailants that didn't exist, sometimes they'll describe the assailant's action as incredibly cruel. But then they show no concern about the assailant or assailants being caught. And if you have your house broken into and someone did something horrible to you, you are going to be scared out of their mind. They're coming back. You must catch them. So I'm looking for that as well. And Darlie said, oh my God, my babies are dying. Now this was a little bit also surprising, because she was just, her words, stabbed herself. And mothers generally have a type of resistance, a type of denial. This is not something that they can accept early. When a child goes missing and a mother begins to speak of the child in the past tense, the mother is telling us she knows or believes the child is dead. Because of the natural resistance, that's not something they allow for. So the first thing we ask is, did police tell that mother something so jarring, so horrible, and true, that she's quickly accepting? Even in those cases, we find mothers in denial. It's like taking a dead baby and handing it to the mother, and the mother starts to rub the baby to get the baby warm. Like a natural maternal protective capacity to nurture and keep safe, keep alive. So I was concerned here so quickly that she's willing to say they're dying. Where is the denial? Where is the resistance?
Peter, could it be though that, let's say she's saying, she's saying it to get them to get to her faster. Like, my babies are dying, to get the ambulance there faster.
Sure, I think that's a great point. It's one of the things that we do in team analysis. It's called pushback. And you can do it when you're alone, but it works better when you're with others. Is every point that's made, every principle that's raised and we see it, push back against it and try to excuse it.
Okay, yeah.
So that's a great point. And please feel free to do that, all of them, because if you can successfully push back, then we are going to conclude either she didn't do it or we don't know an answer here. For us to conclude deception, and especially guilty knowledge here, we have to be certain.
Okay.
So great point. My babies are dying, oh my God. So one of the things we look for is an innocent caller will ask for help for the victims. The exception being is if the caller is administering first aid or CPR. They'll ask for help for themselves doing what they're doing, but we want to hear help asked for the babies. We don't like to hear the decline of my babies are dying, but I'm willing to be pushed back on that one, saying, well, maybe she's just trying to rush the ambulance. What's going on, ma'am? Oh my God. And there's a lot of unintelligible words that go back and forth. She said, finally, thought he was dead. This might be in the background. Oh my God, I don't even know. And I'm not sure if she's saying, I don't even know what's going on, or I don't know if he's dead or not. She's obviously in extreme upset. And the operator does a good job of trying to get a hold of her and get it going. She then says, who was breathing? I don't even know. And the interruption, who was breathing? It may be an interrupted sentence. I don't know. Since it's expected that she would know her son's identity, this does not really make sense to us, which one of them she was talking about.
But it could be also because Darren's talking and we can't hear what Darren's saying, so is she answering Darren at this
Correct.
point? Okay.
Correct. And that's another good point. And that's not really a much a pushback point, but a good contextual point is that she could be going back and forth with him. I want to hear the kids' names. I want to hear specific wounds. I want to hear her say, how do I stop the bleeding? Or, get here now, you've got to save them. You've got to stop the bleeding. Or something like that. Darlie said, are they still lying there? So that caught my attention because she references the body posture of the boys, which is not something I expect unless she's describing body posture. Do you have them face up or face down while you're administering CPR, for example? So the body posture is generally noted for tension, like an increase of tension. So if I say to my daughter, do your homework, or if I say sit down and do your homework, it's a little more emphatic while I'm saying to her, sit down, using body posture, just an increase of importance or tension there. Another one would be, my boss told me to be at work at 9. My boss stood and told me, be at work at 9. So by recalling the body posture, I'm elevating the importance. Well, when we talk about something lying, we'd like to know who caused it to do that. So with an inanimate object, the bag of drugs is sitting on the table. Okay? That's a human connection to an inanimate object. Oftentimes the speaker is the one that put it on the table, because drugs don't walk over and sit down by themselves. We get that with drugs, we get that with stolen cash, with a lot of things. But here I'm concerned about they're dying, and she's talking about the body posture. So I'm just wondering, and I don't know, did she have anything to do with their location? It's important to her. So I want, rather than me guess whether she did or didn't, I want her to guide me with that. But I want her to tell me about the guy who did the people that did this. So she may have been talking to the husband there. Operator says a possible stabbing. And Darlie said, "Oh my God, what do I do?" She's the mother. "Oh my God, what do I do?" And that could be something good where she's going to put pressure on the wound or try to administer help in any way that they guide her to do so. But that's not what she said. She said, "What do we do?" And that is something I didn't expect to hear from a mother in extremis, in this extreme situation where her children are stabbed before her. They're her children. She gave birth to them. They're her babies. So it's not a major point, but just something I wasn't expecting to hear. What do we do? Not what she herself could do.
Is it because in your head you're thinking she's distancing by using we instead of I? Because, you know, her husband's there at this time and he's also helping. So it wouldn't be something normal to be like, what do we do?
No, not for, good question, but not for the powerful maternal instinct of the biological mother. This is very personal. These are her babies. She birthed them.
Okay.
But I don't want to go too far and say, well, with we is so much there. Basically, it is a type of distancing language. Sometimes call it crowdsourcing guilt. She doesn't want to be alone with one of the most personal things that she could be with in a situation that is so extremely personal. She's not the auntie. She's not the grandmother. Even those things would be personal. She is the biological mother, and she went to we. I wasn't expecting that. Mm-hmm. Not a major point, but just another one of those little building blocks as we're looking at. Also with the, oh my God, I'm not flagging her so much for invoking deity. Where people get in trouble is where they invoke deity as a witness to their own words.
What do you mean by that?
Oh my God, that's a normal reaction that anyone would have in a terrible situation. We flag any use of deity, God, the Lord, Jesus, anything like that in 911 call, especially when it has to do with their own words. We don't need to hear, honest to God, my kids are bleeding. We don't need God to call witness to our words if our children are bleeding. So I'm not flagging this as something extraordinary here. You know, the oh my God, back and forth there. A little more deeper analysis is we compare times that when she refers to them as babies versus she used earlier
little children or little
children. So we try to let her guide us. When are they kids? When are they babies? That sort of thing, and to see if anything comes of that. And she goes to my baby's dead. So we have baby associated with death before babies was associated with dying. And we note the absence of maternal denial, maternal resistance to such a thing. It's just not something that is found in emergencies unless the mother has processed the death already. One of the points on the McCann analysis was that Kate had processed that death already. Kate, as a mother, would have changed Madeline's diaper, fed Madeline when hungry, gave her a bath, cleaned her. If she fell, pick her up, put a Band-Aid on her knee. All those things that a mother and a father would do, Kate would do. Someone now has Madeline. So one of the things that we expect to hear is the mother now either addressing directly or indirectly the kidnapper with Madeline's needs. I'm used to doing all these things for her. Now you've got to do this. You make sure she eats. Make sure what about her teddy bear? What about the medicine that she's on, or whatever it may be? Kate showed no concern for what Madeline was going through under the hands of a kidnapper or a child trafficker. Kate was more concerned about surviving. So I expect a mother to give us some denial, not to surrender so quickly. Usually mothers have to be talked into accepting a baby's death or a child's death. It's just such a very powerful thing that is deep within us. So the maternal denial is critical. That's why we say in missing child cases, a mother will not speak in the past tense unless something is terribly wrong with the case. Then we hear on the audio Darlie say, "I saw them, Darren." We assume this is the killers. I saw them, plural. We have another plural pronoun. Darren was introduced there. Oh my God. And she's talking in between sobs. I saw them. Oh my God, came in here. So they came in. She repeats back that they came in. There's not a necessity to tell you that someone came into the house when your children are bleeding, lying in the house. We know they came in the house because they can't do it from outside. What we look for is overemphasis. So as I said earlier, if I say we are going to get you and we are a large group and we are a foreign faction, and eventually you're going to say this guy's alone.
It's like the doth protesteth too much
scenario. It is. Yes, very good. It is unnecessary to say they came in, they broke in, I saw them. You should begin to wonder, hey, did no one break into this house? What's going on here with that? Just from the words that she's using. Ma'am, I need you to calm down and talk to me. Got the address. Yes, we need help. Okay, we want to hear what help is needed specifically. My son's bleeding. I don't think he's breathing. Whatever it may be, we want to hear that. Now, it could be that the we here could be we need help, and I don't think so. We mean me and my two sons. One she's already declared dead. But that's I'm trying to push back against myself. A little bit of a stretch there, but trying to push back.
But you think here we need help is her saying her and Darren, her husband, need help.
I do. Okay. I do. And as far as I know, Darren's not bleeding.
Okay, I see.
She hasn't said that. And she hasn't said what they're doing to help the boys live. I'm very concerned about that. We need help. She is bleeding, and she reported that she and her sons are bleeding, dying. So we're going to listen what's on her mind. Then the operator says they will be en route, and she calls out the code. And Darlie says, Darren, I don't know who it was. So not grab a towel and wrap wherever the wound was. She wants him to know, I don't know who it was. I don't think he was there accusing her of anything. I think he was in a panic himself about the babies. So the identity is now in question. We had gender neutral, we had plural, and now we have singular again. So at that point, it was very difficult for me to not say she is concealing the identity of the killer. Why would she conceal the identity of the killer? Why would she protect the killer or the stabber at this point, and maybe killer if we listen to her words about one baby being dead? Why would she protect the assailants? Why would she protect the identity? We don't even know if it's a man or woman at this point. So this statement is very important to her. I don't know who it was, who being singular. And she also uses his name. Now, this is an emergency. You wouldn't have to use someone's name to get their attention. And that we don't hear of him asking, who was it? But she gets his attention. So she's not asked for help from authorities, from police, on how to help with breathing or bleeding issues, but she's focused on they who came here, and now they is who, but we still don't know the identity. I have one child that's been declared dead. This is a strong indicator that her priority is convincing both police and Darren that someone came in there, and there should be no need to try to persuade police listening and her husband that someone entered the house. But for her, it's a very strong priority. As a matter of fact, she says this before she says, how do I make the blood stop, the bleeding stop?
And it is one of the things she said first, right? Before she said she was cut and her boys were cut.
Correct.
Or stabbed.
Stabbed, yep. Correct. She came and the commentators there are astutely noting that that is something that we don't expect from a mother. That's selfish. If she had been stabbed first and was so wounded that she couldn't stop him, or them, or they, because we don't know if it's male or female, maybe that would be the case, but that's not what has been her language. That would be me inventing that. Then she says, we've got to stop the bleeding. Nope, she doesn't say that. She says we've got to find out who it is. Okay. At this point, I threw in the towel. I said she's concealing the gender. She's concealing the identity of the assailant. She's more concerned with then finding out who did this rather than concerned about the status of the children. She still has not asked for help for her children. Now, I'm not a big fan of checklists. I think people need to think more critically for themselves, but sometimes it can be helpful in the beginning of learning. They learn to look for certain things besides pronouns. They look for the order in which people make a 911 call, what's so important to them. They also are trained to listen for the caller asking for help for the victim. And it should be something also where the attacker is identified as a monster, a bastard, a terrible man, any type of words that are familiar with her. That would be a negative linguistic disposition. That would be appropriate. That would be appropriate in this case. So far, all I get is her concealing the gender. As a matter of fact, an analyst might suggest that she's protecting the assailant.
Protecting the person.
She is. We've got to find out who it was. No, we've got to stop their bleeding. We've got to get the boys to survive this.
That's the priority.
That should be the priority, especially from a mother. So her priority is not the children. It is now to persuade police that someone, and now singular, came in, broke in, and did this to her and to the children. So the repetition, by revisiting it, shows how important it is to her that they get this message. Operator says, ma'am, listen to me. Yes, yes. Oh my God. I need you to, and the operator is going to try to get information from her and get the condition of the children so that first aid can be applied. And Darlie says, my babies are dead. So the children, little boys, were stabbed, but the babies are dead or dying. Language doesn't change on its own. At this point, we're looking at now at the change of language because of the context. This is a tight context. So if I say, I was driving my car along 95 and the engine seized up on me, so I left my vehicle on the side of the road. The car, when it no longer would go, became a vehicle in my language. Now, I didn't stop at some point and say, should I call my car a vehicle because it's no longer working? Once it's repaired and I pick it up, it's going to be picked up, it's going to be a car again. So it's my perception of reality that changes the language that's used here. Babies are dead and dying. She associates that with their death, that she's already processed it. And what she's telling us by the change of language is reality has changed. Reality has changed.
Her reality has changed right in that moment, or
right in that moment. It's something that we do without even thinking. We are able to, our vocabulary will change if our perception of reality has changed. So the boys or children become babies and baby under this type of death sentence. They're the most vulnerable babies. So we look at the change of reality, we seek the justification for it. What caused the car to become a vehicle? Well, it wouldn't go any longer. We find that in perception of how people look at perpetrators that have committed crimes against them. They'll change with that. So children, little boys were stabbed, but babies are dying or dead. So this should cause investigators, particularly any investigative psychologist, to go into the topic of motherhood with her. And this is before I knew it was her that did this. Do you want, honey, hold on. So this appears to be directed to one of the children, I'm not sure, but she doesn't use the child's name, very unexpected. If your babies are dying, it's not someone else's kids, it's not universal. They're yours. You name them. You've called them that name every day, many times a day. They're yours. You had mentioned earlier about the possibility of distancing language. That's what this is. Psychologically distancing oneself from the victims. Most unexpected under context.
So in this context, you would expect because first she said, my babies are dead, you would expect here to see, let's say, Devin, hold on, Devin, or
yes,
okay,
exactly.
So the honey is the distancing. Okay.
Yes, it's a great example. When and we're not talking about the Summer Wells case, but perhaps another time, the mother avoids using Summer's name.
Yeah.
Most unexpected. Some of your viewers might remember the baby Lisa case. I think it was out of St. Louis, where baby Lisa went missing, and the mother just completely avoided using Lisa's name. People that spoke for the mother used baby's name, but not the mother herself. She showed guilty knowledge of having killed the baby or having the baby died during something in neglect.
And when children are missing, you want to use their name as much as possible for a variety of reasons too.
Yes.
To appeal to the person that might have them, to make the child, like a human being instead of like just a baby, like you name it.
Generally speaking, the type of coaching that is done with that, a mother or father will not need instruction to use the baby's name. Mm-hmm. They will need instruction to talk very personally about the child's attributes, to try to show a human side to a crazy killer or crazy kidnapper. But the names just flow because that's the name that they've always called it. Sometimes you'll even hear terms of endearment, nicknames, not terms of endearment, but nicknames. So the operator hears this and heard her say something, do you want, honey, hold on? And then she said, I'm talking to my babies. They're babies again. They're dying. So we have the same context again. And then we have, Opera, what is going on? So at this point, we're expecting that she's going to ask for guidance how to stop the bleeding.
Right, that hasn't happened yet. Yeah.
It hasn't. And we are outsiders many years removed. We don't know who they are, but we're talking about it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's what our instincts would tell us to do. And this is where it gets really, the analysis is no longer complex, but simple. What is going on? She said, somebody came in while I was sleeping. Me and my little boys were sleeping downstairs. So not only do we have somebody coming in the gender neutral, I don't want you to know who it was. I'm concealing the gender at this point, which is not going to last, but it has thus far it has. But in case you think I did something, I was sleeping. One of the analysts that I worked with once cracked a little bit of dark humor, said that it fascinated her that so many guilty mothers were sleeping when the child was allegedly kidnapped. They have a need to say this so that they can establish some form of an alibi. If your children are bleeding by the hand of a man who broke in, you don't need an alibi, you don't care for an alibi. You care for how to stop the bleeding. She wants them to know, part of her priority, that the person, the gender neutral person, which I haven't told you yet, if it's a male or female, which tells you, because most killers are men like that, especially home invasion, it's likely going to be a male. I'm going to conceal the gender. And so at this point, an analyst is thinking, the woman did this. Because she's avoiding telling us, very obvious. Any questions from the chat from thus far with that?
Yeah, let's see if anyone in chat has a question.
Let's see here. Yeah.
Dawn of Destruction. Do we hear Darren yelling, what do I do at all? Dawn of Destruction. Do you mean what's Darren's role in this? If Darren is trying to contribute? I mean, that might be a good question too, but so Mr. Hyatt, how would you answer that? Like the secondary parent, the person that isn't on the phone, if they're not asking questions themselves, are you going in statement analysis, are you going to be taking that into consideration?
Yes, and we try to listen for obviously what's in the background, and later on when he did speak, I found him to be reliable. He was truthful. So my guess is he was tending to the boys. Good question though.
Let's see if we have any others. We will take questions at the end too, you guys, but if you have any, we're on a little bit of a delay, but if you have any, we'll check in every once in a while.
Okay. Now, she said somebody, which conceals the gender and the identity, came in while I was sleeping, establishing her own alibi. Me and my little boys were sleeping. They're back to being little boys again.
Interesting.
They're not,
so while they're alive, am I getting this right or am I off? While they're alive, they're little boys. When she's hit the point in her head when they've passed their babies.
Now, if you go back to, or when they were dying, if you go back to my car example, I was driving my car along the highway, the engine seized up on me or it broke down. So I left the auto on the side of the road and got a ride home, or I left the vehicle. So the car changed into a vehicle, and within the context of my account, of driving and then not driving, it is an indication that someone is telling the truth. The change of language is justified by the context. She is telling the truth in the sense that at one point they were her boys, but they reverted back to being babies when they were dying, and she's consistent with it. It's likely reliable, which leads us to go, she knew. She knew. While they were sleeping, they were still safe, but they're not any longer from the person that she's concealing the identity of.
And one other thing, Dawn of Destruction wants to know if her education level has any bearing on the verbiage she's using.
It always does. It always does. But if someone has the expectation that they're going to be understood, and they are understood in normal communications, we look at all those factors, including some regional expressions too. So great question, Donna. For some people, it can be very difficult broken English. We have to take them at their word. I did a case where the young man's name was Nathan Carmen. And Nathan went out for a boat ride with his mom, and she never came back. And Nathan has Asperger's. So there's a very low emotional affect, and it's like a very linear, almost block-like language when he speaks, but he was still deceptive. And we learned later on that his grandfather was shot dead. His grandfather was a multimillionaire. He left money. The shooting came from somewhere within the house, the grandfather's own rifle. Nathan was suspected in, but wasn't proven. And then Nathan, his mother got $10 million or something. And Nathan wanted to go out on a fishing trip with her, and she didn't want to go. And he pushed and pushed and pushed. And then said they took on water, and he got into a lifeboat and left because he couldn't save his mother. And that kid, it's not adjudicated yet, but he was deceptive about it. I had to take into account especially the emotional blunting of Asperger's and understanding what that's like. So it's a great question. We do look at regional language. We look at education level. We look at any mental health issues that are going on. We look at everything as part of that, part of pushback, part of, no, we've got to hang on and be able to believe this person is innocent and telling the truth. At this point, Darlie's talked me out of it. It's been too much to overcome, but it's still a great question to ask there. So now we get down to some details. Darlie says, some man came in. I think that's the third time he came in her language. So after a while, how many times do I have to say I'm with others before you realize I'm alone? How many times must I say came in until you realize maybe someone was already in? And it's some man. At this point, they're bleeding. They may be dead at this point or near death. It should be the man. She's already.
The man.
Yeah. And this is another place where she's caught in deception.
Yeah. Wow.
It's not some man, some random guy out there. It's the man, the guy, the bastard.
Right.
The son of a bitch who did this. The killer, the assailant, whatever, the stabber, whatever word she wants to use. It's not some. Some is random. Some is unknown.
It's a distancing again, in a way, right? It's a little bit, yeah.
So she is trying to convince police, this is an interview with police, that she doesn't know who did it. And now she finally describes the gender. So this is an indicator of deception, and at this point I flag it in red because it is deceptive. Okay, stay on the phone with me. Oh my God. What happened? Hold on, honey, hold on. We do know terms of endearment. They oftentimes are said for the police to hear. And they often indicate the opposite. We call this by very, very different ways we flag it. But for instance, so last night I was putting my granddaughter to bed, and I said, "I love you," and I put her to sleep.
Mm.
If I gave that statement to police, it is a sign of a bad relationship. You say, "Why? Of course you love your granddaughter or your daughter or your son. Everyone does. What's wrong with saying I love you? I say I love you to my kids every night."
Right.
It's the need to say it to police
Mm.
in the context of a criminal investigation that tells us to the contrary. Something is wrong with the relationship.
Mm.
Oh.
I was teaching this one time, and we came upon this principle, and we use it when it's someone used like a term of endearment, and I was able to pinpoint the time of death where he had killed her because he used the term of endearment at that moment. I said, "You'll find that this is where he killed her." It was probably a sarcastic jab that he was giving to her. But the term of endearment is meant to influence you, the listener, that we have a really good and close relationship.
Mm.
And she didn't. Oh my God, oh my God. Darlie says, "Hold on." Operator says, "Who's with you?" And then I think Karen, that may be Darren, I'm not sure. So the operator wants to find out and get some clarity there. "Ma'am, what? Is there anyone in the house besides you and your children?" "No. My husband, he just ran downstairs. He's helping me. But they're dying. Oh my God, they're dead." So when the operator is asking a natural question, and then she says, "No, it's just her husband and he's helping her. But the babies, she wants them to know, are beyond help."
So in that sentence you take, he's helping me, meaning he's tending to her wound or helping her with the boys?
Well, apparently she wasn't able to do anything for the boys much because her own, I think they were rather superficial wounds, but that's outside the statement. He's downstairs, so he's not helping her. So I don't know what this is about. Maybe he's tending to them. That's what I would believe he'd be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And later on from his statement, we get a little more clarity, but that's also separate here.
Mm-hmm.
But they're dying. Oh my God, they're dead. So she's processing it. She's allowing it to be something that we don't expect a mother to do, and she's repeating it over and over. "Okay, so how many little boys? There's 2 little boys?" And she said, "There's 2 of them. There's 2." And she hasn't used the kids' names yet.
Right.
Which is very surprising. Then she said, "Oh my God, who would do this? Not why, but who would do this?" In other words, I, Darlie, don't know who did it, because if I did, I wouldn't be asking who did it. So the disinterested in motive, but by the way, she was asleep, so it couldn't have been her.
Right.
In her language.
She's told us she's asleep, right?
Yeah. "Okay, listen to me, calm down. I feel really bad. I think I'm dying." So she turns the attention to herself. And what I found was striking there also from a maternal point of view is that she knows they're dying, but she only thinks that she's dying. I think she's telling the truth there. That she, in other words, she comparing them. She's already accepted their death, but really, and qualifying her words there, she's making that weak assertion. This would suggest to me she's okay. Quite a comparison. She accepts that which is unacceptable, but then only qualifies what would be perhaps a reality. So it's weakness. She only thinks she's dying, but she knows the babies are dying. That's the comparison. Go ahead. When are they going to be here? Now, she hasn't asked for help for them.
Right. No instruction.
Yep.
And we don't know this. We don't know this. The first time, obviously, hearing 911 operators don't know this. Darren is giving CPR to one of the boys, during this, but she hasn't asked for aid in doing the CPR, and she hasn't said, my husband's doing CPR, it's not working, or any indication that there's being life-saving measures being done right now.
She doesn't ask for help for the victims.
Yeah.
The boys. Or I guess at this point we call them the babies.
Babies, yeah.
And then she said, I gotta just sit here forever. Oh my God. So she uses her, remember I said before about sitting my daughter down to do her homework, or using the body posture?
Mm-hmm.
That's a sign of tension, and she's tense about herself. This is about her. So thus far, what are the rotten words that she used to describe the killer?
Wait, it's a male, I think, is the only thing, right?
She used none of them.
None. She hasn't used any.
Her linguistic disposition towards the killer is to protect the killer.
Mm.
That's positive. Where it should be extremely negative. So at that point, I thought to myself, she knows who did this, but I'm not convinced it's a male because she's not convinced. I still didn't think it was just her just yet. I had to come to that. And I know we're running on, how much time do we have?
However much you want.
Yeah, however.
We're on your time.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to run on too long, but the linguistic disposition should be extremely negative. Every place where it's not is alarming. She should be asking repeatedly for help for her children. She's not.
Mm-hmm.
You could say, does she want them to die, or has she already processed their death? Now, the processing of death by a mother at this point tells me that there may have been planning for such an assault. You don't have that where a mother accidentally drops or shakes a baby. I think the Madeline McCann died an unintentional death, and then they went into cover-up mode. I know people have different views on that, but that's what I get thus far from the language. They process the death quickly because they've got to survive. And they can say to themselves, they can justify it, I've got to survive for the other two children.
Right.
So you can talk yourself into anything.
Mm.
Well, in this particular case, the mother has processed the death so quickly and focused on herself that apparently her husband did not. He was more natural, trying to save them. And now she's angry that she has to just sit there. So the tension is increased, the body posture of sitting. We didn't think that she was doing jumping jacks, after being stabbed.
Right.
I just got to sit here forever. Oh my God.
Mm.
And then back to this again. Who would do this? Who would do this? I think that's the fourth or fifth time, because there's two there, that she's letting the 911 operator know, I don't know who did this. I don't know who did this. Oh, I don't know who did this. I don't know who did this. And after a while, it weighs down and someone says, hey, you know who did this.
You know who did this, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And you seem awful nice trying to protect the person that did this. And you're concealing even the gender of the person.
Interesting.
And then how old are your boys? What? How old are your boys? 7 and 5. She still hasn't used their names.
Mm.
And she's actually trying to control the information herself. She's not allowing the information to flow. If she was facilitating the flow of information, she'd be talking about what Darren was doing to save one of them and what she was trying to do.
Yeah.
So now, interesting, finally one of the names enters. Oh my God, he's dead. Oh God, Devin, no. Oh my God. So we have, under the context, he's dead. She verifies the names. And here she then says, please hurry. God, they're taking forever. We generally don't expect to hear politeness under emergency.
Mm.
And so it's a mild red flag, but it's still something we do flag in context of everything else she's done. It's troublesome. So the 911 operator number 1 has been listening to her repeat who did this over and over. The police officer looked for a rag, and then Darlie with the plural, gender neutral, they killed our babies. And the word our there is very concerning to me. But at this point, maybe not so concerning because I've already been convinced. She talked me into this.
Mm.
Our means to share. Our means to share. Now, if she is standing in front of a microphone, her and her husband, maybe the word our. But from a mother of a child that's been murdered, that's my baby. That's mine. So, it's one of those interesting pronouns that when people are talking, you hear them sharing, and if you know the people, it can sometimes be an indication that the marriage is in trouble, or it could be a stepchild, for example. People use that with stepchildren, foster children, adopted children. There's something like that. But generally speaking, it's my. My son scored a run in baseball today, that sort of thing, because I'm proud of baseball or hockey or grades. My daughter got a new job today. When I go to share, it is a subtle distancing. Now, if I'm the stepfather, I might say our, because there is not the biological father, there is an actual distancing there. In spite of loving her or something like that, but it comes to our language, and it's little clues that are given. And as far as we know, he's upstairs doing CPR. I didn't expect that. The sharing tells me that something is very wrong here.
So Nightbird has a question, actually, Peter. Would her injuries play a part in how she's responding?
Yeah, great pushback. If she's lost a lot of blood, she could start to become woozy and start to become losing a sense of direction, losing a sense of like laser-like focus on saving the boys, which we've never seen anyway. So yeah, great question. And great observation too. Here, we have finally the operator is answering her about this thing. You don't know who did this? And she says, they, plural again, killed our babies. So when someone can't keep their pronouns straight, you're pretty safe to conclude deception. There's a great exercise to prove this to be true. And I sometimes spring on a class in training, especially new classes like this. But I prove to them that the pronouns are instinctive. So if I ask you, what did you have for breakfast 2 Wednesdays ago? I don't know. Unless you have the same breakfast every day, you don't know. And that's only 2 weeks ago. So then if I ask you to tell us something that happened to you, it has to be true, don't lie, and make it, and I'll pick on someone, say middle-aged, make it not 2 weeks ago, but make it 35 years ago. And let me know when you have the story, you're ready to speak it. And the person says, all right, I'm ready. Then I ask them, do you know if you're going to start with the word I or the word we? In other words, were you alone or were you with someone? And the person always knows what they're going to say. They remember 35, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, on whatever they're repeating, whatever event that took place, whether they were alone or with someone else. They didn't stop and say, man, should I start this story with an I or should I start it with a we? Let me think about that for a moment so I get my story straight. Like that. It's instinctive. And so that's one of the things we're looking at with Darlie, or distancing language and the pronouns. It's either they or him. Even if you don't want to get terribly negative. And some people may have They just never curse like that. They never use foul language, and or they use language that's different. They'll call the killer something else, but it's something negative. She is, in fact, positive towards the killer because she protects the identity. And she keeps saying, I don't know who it is. I don't know who it is. I don't know who it is.
Interesting.
She's telling us about herself, actually.
Mm.
So the police officer lay down, okay, just sit down. Typing all that. And Darlie is heard saying, no, he ran out. They ran out in the garage. I was sleeping.
Mm.
And if someone can't see the deception in that one, I probably can't train them. He ran out. They ran out. I was sleeping. And deception is indicated there, not only with the inability to keep track of the pronouns, but with the alibi building.
Right.
So,
Ooh, wow.
let's see if I have just a little more here. Remember, the babies are dead. My baby's over here, already cut. The phone is right there. So she's shown her priority is to make sure that the alibi stands strong. And I'm going back to that question about the bleeding out and how that might impact her language. That was a really great question. She has the presence of mind while she's thinking that she is dying to instruct police on how to conduct their investigation. Watch this. You all look out in the garage. Look out in the garage. They, plural, left the knife lying on. I remember what I said about an inanimate object being given a body posture as an indicator the person put it there. So the drugs were sitting on the coffee table. The person put it there. That's why the drug was sitting. That's her. She put the knife there. And she wants to let them know. She's giving more detail about herself with the knife than she gave about the boys and their condition.
Oh my gosh.
They, plural, left the knife lying on. So the body posture.
But what would you expect her to say if it wasn't her for the knife? That the knife just laying on, or no? How else would you say that? I'm trying to think with the knife. If she's trying to describe the knife lying on the floor, how would you expect it if she didn't put it there? How would you expect her to say that? Okay, so that's a good question of pushback. And the trouble I'm going to have with it is, if it was me, if it was you or others, we'd be focused upon the children and maybe focused on a knife if the officer asked us about the knife. Okay.
I don't think we would have thought of it to offer it as information and then go back to they ran out the garage.
Okay, I see.
So this is really, so great question, great pushback. I can't parry it like that. She is focused on herself, and watch this. Watch the detail that she gives. I already touched it and picked it up. So I was sleeping, and my DNA will be on the knife.
I know that's a big one that I always go back to. That, like, whew.
Yeah. So would you, as or any mom in the audience, would you have the presence of mind to not care what's going on with your kids, but you can get some details about a knife? And did you chase them out that way, that you would see such a thing and pick up the knife? You think a man's going to run from you like that, who has a knife and just killed your babies and is stabbing you? So none of it makes sense. And it becomes overwhelming that Darlie knows and wants to protect the female killer. And the female killer is in the house because of her need to persuade. He came in, they came in the house. Just the opposite. Who's out there? Is anyone out there? And Darlie says, I don't know. I was sleeping. So it's rather absurd at this point.
Yeah, because that's past tense and they're asking present, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. She must protect herself. Someone from the outside came in and I was asleep. Over and over and over. Not anything about the kids until now.
Nice. Yeah.
And finally, they're barely breathing. So they were dying, they were dead, and they're barely breathing, and no names to them, and no differentiation between one or the other, the boys. If they don't get it here, they're going to be dead. You already declared them that way. My God, they're hurry, please hurry, politeness.
Yeah, we have yet to hear Damon's name. We heard Devon's name when she declared him dead, but we
Correct.
have yet to hear Damon's name.
Good observation. Listen, ma'am, I need to let the officers in the front door. What, ma'am? Okay. So the operator got her attention with the word, listen, ma'am, and prepared Darlie to know that coming to the door. Darlie says, what? And then Darlie says, his knife was lying over there, and I already picked it up. Not the knife, but his knife is a personal pronoun. It's assigned to someone. It's already been introduced. It's the knife. She wants to make sure that they understand it's not her knife. It belongs to someone else. This we tag as need to persuade. And you get enough need to persuade, you're looking at deception. So I know she was awake.
How many have we had so far, Mr. Hyatt? Like 5 need to persuades?
Oh no, I've lost count. There's been more than that even.
It's been more than 5. Okay.
And then the knife again is lying. So we have a body posture for the knife, and then another admission that, not that she picked it up, but I already picked it up. So would you be picking up a knife, or would you be trying to stop your kids bleeding?
Right. I'd be concentrating on my children and getting my children help.
Yeah. It should be such a shocking experience that the only thing that can kick in is survival for your children.
Right.
And that's absent from her. Already, she's trying to shift blame away before the operator can even warn her. Another deception indicated. The mother's instinct should be on the children. It's not. This mother's instinct is self-preservation, alibi building, an attempt to persuade that someone did this and it wasn't her. And she said, God, I bet if we could have gotten the prince, maybe. So I go back to the excellent question about the loss of blood and how it might affect her mind, because it is a really good question. And we have her with laser precision detail on how the investigation should be handled. Not a word about saving the boys.
So what would you say to people? Sorry, Zav. What would you say? Because we have it. That's
the one you're going to say.
Just gonna ask. Yeah,
go ahead.
that what they're getting from this is that she really wants to catch this perp. She wants us to catch this perp.
So if she wants to catch the perp, is it a male, a female, singular, or plural? Then she goes further, back to protecting herself again. Somebody, gender neutral, who did it, intentionally walked in here and did it, Darren. So now the intruder, the home invader, didn't break in. He walked in, and here's the key. Walking is pretty casual. That's like the 30 minutes to sit down and write the Ramsey ransom note. How does she know the intent of the killer? And frankly, I believe her. She knew what she was doing. She knows the intent of the killer. So at this point, it's not difficult analysis. It's almost to the point of being silly, where she's trying so hard to persuade police that she didn't do it, and she doesn't know who did it. But somebody, gender neutral, who did intentionally and walked in, that's not an intrusive language. That's not, remember, a home invasion is, we always flag in statements if someone gives a location of where they sleep. Sleep is where we are most vulnerable. Location of sleep. You'll see combat vets, police officers, law enforcement, military. We'll talk about even pulling blankets up because they're protecting themselves, no language. But where we sleep is where we are most vulnerable in life. So our homes are sanctuaries. They're the place where we are the safest. And so if someone breaks in, it is an intrusion. She slows it down to a walk. That's more like watching a silly horror movie than describing what really happened. It's not coming from experiential memory. Darlie said, there's nothing touched. She still has the peace of mind to try to direct the investigation there. There's nothing touched, she repeats. The police officer was there. So this was my conclusion. Deception was indicated, the end. The language of the 911 call shows the caller has guilty knowledge of the murder of her children. The caller has the need to persuade police that someone came to the house. The caller cannot keep her pronouns or articles straight. The caller cannot keep the chronology of her story consistent. The caller has intimate knowledge of the killer's intentions and thoughts. The caller is more concerned with evidence pointing than with her children's condition or lives. And so my conclusion was she knows who did it. She likes who did it. She's protecting the person that did it. And this is something that we see in anonymous authors who refuse to condemn themselves. That's why she had no nasty language towards the killer. She didn't even call him a killer. So that was something I sent in, and I thought, hey, this is pretty interesting because she did it, and it's a woman. That's not terribly common. But they already had her arrested and convicted by the time I got involved.
Well, that's a good point. I don't know how to pronounce your name, Ange Texgal. How did she know nothing was stolen at that point? How would she even be aware of it at that point when she's on the 911 call? That's kind of, I didn't even think about it like that, huh?
Generally speaking, when I do an analysis with any type of live audience, someone always comes up with something I missed. It's marvelous. It's so helpful wow, great point, thank you. And I absorb that and put it into the training. So I'm able to build on as I go along from different training. I've done the Ramsey case forever. And still people will come up with something, a small point somewhere in the language that I hadn't considered. It's very helpful.
Wow.
Let's see if there's anything else.
This was amazing. I've been wanting to hear your Darlie story, since we started talking, and I'm like, wonder what this is, because we've been so invested in the Darlie case. We've been doing the transcripts, and it really helps to have you here, shining a light on the language of the 911 calls are amazing. And for the Summer Wells case, I was hoping that we could hear the 911 call instead of it being, reported to us by the dispatcher, to actually hear the tone of Dawn calling it in. And we don't have that for that case. So it'd be great to have you. Mm-hmm.
That'd be helpful when that gets released. Was Candace the mother? Did she make that call also?
She called her husband to call 911.
Okay.
So he called it in to the dispatcher, and we're kind of doing what you call pushback, is saying maybe she shouldn't have Wi-Fi. I mean, her phone reception, because they're in rural Tennessee, maybe she was out looking for Summer and she's like, I'm going to look, you call 911, but it'd be nice to hear the call.
Yep. And I think that they haven't released that information because I think they know what they're doing quite well. I'm not involved with the case. Whenever I'm involved with the case, I never blog about it. I never talk about it in public. Okay. So this one I'm free to talk about, but and I know there's the interview room has interviewed family and friends, and that's been interesting. But I'm quite certain that he also checks with law enforcement and won't do anything that they wouldn't want him to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So if you enjoyed being on our show here, you can come back after next week. This week is crazy, you guys, for Mr. Hyatt. and if you guys missed that in the beginning, he is training people from all over the world this week. And so he graced us with his presence. So after this week, if you have time to come and talk the Summer Wells case with us, we would love that.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the team, they have a cold case tomorrow to handle, and then Thursday, the team, and it's very inspiring. These are some great professionals. They may be looking at my analysis on Chris Watts' girlfriend. That was
it's a big one. Wow.
I don't know if they're going to do it because I don't know that it's very exciting to them. But the challenge is, and it sounds comedic, but to prove me wrong.
Okay.
Ah, okay.
And they're not afraid to push
Tell
back with
you?
this. Oh yeah, they're good.
Wow.
I listened to that. I was shocked you did Nicole Kessinger. I was shocked you did that, and I was so happy you did it. But I'd love to hear what the team says about pushes back on that one.
Yeah.
The transcript is I think 100 and some odd pages, so it's very long. So I decided just do a video instead of breaking down on the whiteboard, the low tech stuff. I would just make an illusion. Here's my conclusion on the matter. But I was very surprised at the emotional responses of people that were angry, and some were most inappropriate, most disagreeable. No science is worth anything without pushback. It has to be challenged.
Yeah.
I'm just about completed the course on the language of addiction, and I think it has served me well, and I'm able for employers to spot someone that is an active addict who's going to bring harm to their job and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But I haven't published it because I haven't been able to go before, literally not on a Zoom, but stand before a live audience of professionals, especially in the field of sociology, and have them try to shoot holes in it.
Huh.
I need that. I need them to no, that's not right, and here's why, and whatever's left of that will probably be really good, but it has to withstand scrutiny. It can't be shouted down or can't be pushed away, because we don't grow from that, and we're looking for truth.
Right.
There was and sometimes the entities that want justice, sometimes they have a political motivation, and it's not justice. There was a murder in the case in the state of Maine by a man named Dennis DeShane, and he was convicted of killing 13-year-old Sarah Cherry in the woods in Maine many years ago. And one of those entities contacted me and actually came to my home and asked me if I would get involved in freeing Dennis DeShane, and this celebrity and that celebrity is going to be involved, and he's innocent, we got to get justice. I said, I'd be glad to, because the thought of someone spending a life in prison who didn't do it is horrible.
Right.
So they gave me transcripts of the trial, and he was alone, he said, on drugs and fishing in the woods, but no Sarah Cherry was with him. And he said, as the prosecutor was asking questions, so what happened next? He took the stand in his own defense, which is generally a good sign. I like that. And DeShane said, I was admiring the deciduous trees when we were losing daylight. Oops. And the prosecutor said, Mr. DeShane, who's we? And it was called for a recess at that point, and they came back the next day, and the defense presented, well, we was like universal, like we're all losing daylight, like we're all losing sun, we're experiencing snow. And the jury didn't buy it. It was that ridiculous, because the point of losing daylight is when you're in the woods, it's dark, and he was not alone. And the evidence fit that. Oh. So I'm always a little bit suspicious of that, and I've bailed out a few times from those things, because it really was about the death penalty, not about whether the person did it or not.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, if you want to be anti-death penalty, come out and say so. and say that's why what you're doing. But don't try to free someone who is guilty to make a political point.
Right.
So
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm cautious with that sort of thing.
And that's kind of like what happened with Darlie is when we're reading the transcripts, the one thing that we could, because it's a trial transcripts, the one thing we could say is, gosh, her defense just doesn't take up for her. You know, they don't ever interject and say, you know, objection to things that are just ridiculous. So it kind of feels like she didn't, and there's more into it, you know, but,
Yeah.
So it kind of feels like it's a death row case. She's sitting there. If she's innocent, you know, that sucks. But at the same time, if she's not, then she needs to be where she is. So it's kind of this hard thing that I've been juggling in my head over guilt and innocence. So it really helps to have you here and to look at the 911 call. And if anyone in chat wants to ask a question before we wrap this up, I know, you know, we have a little bit of time, maybe like a couple more minutes.
Let's see real quick if there's any
questions.
Yeah, you gave me a few, like, because I'm kind of like, I go back and forth what I think, guilty or innocent. But you gave me a few things that kind of swayed me, maybe swayed me one way or the other. I gotta think about it. But wow, interesting
It's
things.
important that we don't have an emotional investment in the cases. And analysts, especially when they're trained this way, they do so many statements that they become pretty much indifferent to the person. Only the language begins to cling to them, and they bond to that language, and they let the language guide them. So I often find that, especially in public cases, that a person who I really think is a really lousy human being didn't do it, and a person who I really think is a good human being really did it. So our heroes let us down, and people that we think are failures sometimes do heroic things. That's human nature. It's very complex, beyond my understanding.
That's a great way of putting it.
I know people didn't like Darlie because of the silly string and the weird behavior. I'm glad I was able to analyze that without knowing any of those things.
Yeah, definitely. I don't see any other questions. Everybody's just thanking you and saying, you know, good job. And do you see any questions, Bill? I don't see any, actually.
Not really, I guess.
Or I guess I do have one question. This is the only question I see so far. Kate McCoy says, what does he think about the Innocence Project becoming involved? As she says, as he clearly thinks she's guilty. Thank you. So do you have any feelings about that? About the Innocence Project?
Yeah, I'm concerned that it's more political than anything else.
Okay.
Do you remember the Reuben Hurricane Carter, the Bob Dylan song? It's really one of his best songs, and it's the angry lyrics and all that. But he did it, and once some of the transcripts were released, he wrote and played that in '75. To the best of my understanding, I don't think he's ever played it since. So he made this big plea, and all celebrities got involved, and they raised money, but he really did it.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm never I'm not a fan of celebrities in general, but usually when they get on board, something is usually amiss.
Okay.
Like a publicity thing.
Yes, and appearance is very important to them. They're able to. They're very talented. They're able to dissociate. You know, at least the actors dissociate from reality with ease.
Yeah.
But when they get involved with a cause, I generally look. Politicians as well. I generally look a little bit deeper, and I'm hesitant to join in.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really see any other questions. Thank you so much for coming on, Peter. That was very interesting.
Yeah,
Go back and take notes again. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you.
And we dropped the link and your link.
Yeah.
We put your link in chat, and we'll put it.
I'll put it in the description. But yeah, we've been sharing it in the chat, your channel. So hopefully some people will come check out your channel.
Because Yeah, you're really underrated right now on YouTube, and you weren't putting out that many videos. And this, like a week ago, you started putting out, like, what was it, like 2? I was like, wow, Mr. Hyatt, where have you been? All of a sudden.
I had this cheesy iPhone, so I have to do something a little better about that. And then finally, after so many complaints in the comments, I got a little microphone up here, and then it took me days to figure out how to do it. I probably will try to do more videos going forward on different cases. What I'd like to do is I'd like to switch roles and interview other people. I used to interview a lot, and I don't do it much anymore, and I enjoy that. I enjoy getting information from others. So
cool.
I'm giving it some thought. So.
I know you did an interview last week. I'm not going to, this past week, I'm not going to give away who it was, but you have a really big interview where you're going to be a part of, and I'm excited to see that. So
I enjoy the body language experts.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yeah, and they were terrific. Very good at what they do.
Yeah, and you're really good at what you do. So that your combination with them, I am, like I said, that's like an epic show for me. Like I cannot wait for that. That's going to be amazing.
Journalism has changed a lot over the years, and I've become more and more cautious about it. Too often, a journalist has an agenda, and the accepted boundaries of journalism, they've always been pushed, but in the last few years, it's changed dramatically. And so I'm cautious about where I go on and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming here. We're so honored, and I'm especially honored because I've been talking to you about today. You coming on today. You have no idea what that means to me for you to come on today, because I know how busy you are this week. So thank you so much for that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
All righty, bye,
Thank
Peter.
you.
Thanks.
Good night.
All right. Wow, that was awesome. Wow, that was really interesting. I don't even know what to say. I was just like taking everything he was saying in. I'm probably rewatch that and think about everything he said. It was very interesting. And thank you guys, all the chat. Thank you guys for coming. I am gonna end this. I'm not gonna drag this live on because I don't want it. It's at 2 hours. Perfect. All right, Bella. Well, thank you. Tomorrow we got a big live coming up too. So
that's right, you guys.
With Dr. Amy Salerno. So
big live, and
that'll
hopefully,
be 8:30. What's that?
Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that'll be 8:30 tomorrow Eastern time. We'll be talking about Summer Wells case and the Aiden Fucci case. I should say Tristan Bailey case. Summer Wells and Tristan Bailey case. So yeah, come with questions, guys, please, because we don't really have a planned agenda. I mean, we're gonna hit on some points, but like we're really counting on like some good questions and stuff to kind of lead the interview. Because I don't really have any questions planned yet. I should work on that. I haven't got any emails. You guys are supposed to be emailing me questions. It's all good. I don't think there's any comments on. I posted it in my community post, and I don't think there's even any comments under that. I'm like, God. But it's all good.
You got to check the community post sometimes.
Yeah, but yeah. So just email me. I'm having my Proton mail though. I'm having trouble. It keeps filling up, and I'm trying to delete. I've deleted so many emails the last couple of days to try to clear it out, and then I get new ones, and it's just filling right back up. So let me put my Gmail, just in case for the next couple of days. For this interview, for the Amy Salerno interview, if you have questions, email my Gmail email. I'm gonna put it up just so to make sure I get it, because I'm not getting all my Proton because I'm having trouble keeping up with deleting them. Okay. At Gmail. Okay. All right. So yeah. Thank you again, guys. And I'm going to end this here. Bella, do you want to say bye before I end the stream?
I just want to say thanks to everyone for being here. And it's just good to get lots of sides, you guys, and to get as much information as we can. And, we do have to take the emotion out of stuff. We're just gathering information. And, it's good to hear experts talk about what they're really good at in their field.
Mm-hmm. And just because there was a few people saying, well, I don't agree, but that's totally fine. Like even he said, like he likes the criticism, and, I I guess I wish I would have maybe well, no, never mind. I put up the questions that I did see. But yeah, you don't necessarily have to agree with everything he said. So yeah, I feel like I want to watch it again and kind of take notes, I guess. And because I'm still trying to figure out myself how I feel. I don't know. Like I go back and forth, like of what I think. Like some days I'll hear something, I'll be like, leaning more towards this way, and then I'll hear something else, and it's just like I feel like I am like in the middle. Like I don't know. I feel like I can't pick that I feel one way or the other at this point, honestly. So
it's a confusing case, but it's statement analysis is a tool. It's a tool to have in your toolbox of, and I mean, not like have like now we're statement analysts. No, like, okay, this is the creme de la creme of statement analysis people, and he's giving us a view into his world and why they come up with and the reasoning behind it, and it makes perfect sense to me. Because so I mean it but thank you guys all for being here, and thanks for, and try to hit the thumbs up if you liked it on the way out. And if you're not subscribed, because I know so many of you guys aren't subbed to the channel, if you do like us, please think about subscribing, because it's so much easier to find us when you are subscribed than having to type in zavgirl every time. And, you'll get notifications. It's just a lot better that way.
Yeah. And then don't forget tomorrow, guys, we got Amy Salerno. I'm excited. So yeah, try to be there at 8:30. So all right, guys, we'll have a good day, and we'll chat tomorrow. Bye.